Hey, if you're a fan of Randy Rhoads, I think you will enjoy this video. It's an article here and just says Remembering Randy Rhoads, and this was published on February 1st, 1985. This person named Debbie Papio, she's a writer here in this newspaper, and she wrote this little tribute to Randy Rhoads. And I just thought this was just kind of interesting, and I thought if you're a Randy Rhoads fan, you would just kind of appreciate this nice little article that she wrote. Ozzy's guitarist didn't let fame affect him. Listening to Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz album can make me pretty sentimental. I try not to cry, but tears sting my eyes anyway as I listen to D, that touching acoustic guitar solo played by Randy Rhoads. It was written for his mother, but that's not what makes me break down. Yeah, and if you bought that album, you remember in the middle of this album, there's this little acoustic guitar solo. And Randy Rhoads plays the thing, and it's called D, and it's actually, as it says there, it's written for his mother. And it was just this really nice thing. And it was really interesting because here it was, this kind of little classical piece that's just thrown in the middle of this, Ozzy Osbourne's debut album. And it was just kind of odd. But it was pretty cool. What makes me cry is the realization that Randy Rhoads has been dead for 3 years. I hadn't planned to write about Rhoads this week, but I want to share the memory of Randy with all his other fans. His works were few, but he left quite a powerful impact on many rock fans, and no one will really ever forget him. And that is such a fascinating thing to say. First of all, his works were few. When you look at what really the library of stuff that he left behind, there's not a lot. You have the Ozzy Osbourne albums, obviously. You have the Quiet Riot stuff. You have some live recordings, because Ozzy put out that album later called Tribute. I think I have it back in the collection. And you have to put into consideration, of course, his age, because he was born on December 6th of 1956, and then the plane crash was on March 19th of 1982. So he was 25 years old. And which is obviously a pretty young guy. And to have the kind of impact, and especially what she says here, powerful impact on many rock fans, and no one will really ever forget him. And just think about this. Here we are in 2025, and the number of people that will probably watch this video will be in the thousands. And just because so many people remember Randy Rhoads. It's actually really remarkable, the impact that this young guy who really didn't do that much as far in the grand scheme of things, as far as a library of things he'd left behind, and yet he still resonates. He still resonates with people. I mean, think about the song Crazy Train. I think I've mentioned this in other videos, but if you go to almost any sporting activity, a professional sports event, college, high school, you hear the music that's played over the loudspeakers during different things, you'll almost always hear the beginning of Crazy Train. Randy Rhoads' guitar is being played all over the world all the time, just in that one song. And so again, the impact that this person had in such a short period of time is really, really remarkable. Okay, there were so many wonderful things about Rhoads besides his excellent guitar playing. For one thing, he knew the real Ozzy Osbourne, not the guy who always pulled wild stunts on stage. To Rhoads, Ozzy was a good man, a leader who gave him a lot of confidence. The guitarist said he always felt insecure whenever he went on stage, and Ozzy always helped him feel better about himself. And if it weren't for the Oz, we might have never been able to find out what a real talent Rhoads was. Rhoads was also very fond of his family. He had a well-known appreciation for his older brother, Doug Kelly Rhoads, and his sister, Kathy. Rhoads' father left the family when he was a baby, so he felt an extra special feeling toward his mother, Dolores. And again, that's where we get the name D for that guitar solo. He learned how to play guitar in his mother's music school, and years later, he expressed his feelings for her in that beautiful solo called D. Another great thing about Rhoads was that he was quiet and shy and never let his popularity go to his head. While he played the California bars with the early Quiet Riot, He was idolized by many guys who wore their hair like him and also dressed in polka dots, Rhoads' famous trademark. Yeah, and you'd see that it was that flying V that he would play that had the polka dots on it. And I think Zakk Wylde, actually, you'll see him playing one of those today, similarly in tribute to Randy Rhoads. To me, Rhoads was one of the best-looking guys to ever play rock music. Rhoads trained himself to become as best as he could be. While on the road with Ozzy, no matter what the city, Rhoads always found a teacher to help him with his classical guitar playing. He kept improving himself so people would really appreciate his style. He really cared what his fans thought of him, and he never let any of them down. Fans everywhere loved him. All the people who worked with Rhoads, Ozzy, Rudy Sarzo, Tommy Aldridge, guitar builder Grover Jackson, and others, always said the same thing about him. He was a wonderful, kind person. And she throws that the Grover Jackson thing in passing. And here we were in 1985, and we were just really starting to see the massive impact he had even there. Because the first time that we ever saw the Jackson guitar logo was on a Randy Rhoads custom-made guitar. Because he had gone to, because a lot of people would go buy the kind of the Charvel custom-made guitars, but he wanted to have this one that, with these certain specs. And Grover Jackson, who was who owned Charvel at that point, didn't really want to put the Charvel brand on it. And he says, is it okay if I'm just going to put my name on the thing, Jackson. And that was the first Jackson guitar, was a Randy Rhoads guitar. And then they made another one. And after they made that second one, not long after that, that's when he had the accident. And of course, if I didn't say it already, and if you didn't know, you probably do, but it was a small plane crash. They were on tour. He was on tour with Ozzy, and it was on one of their tour stops, and they went up in this little private plane. He and one other lady that was on the tour with him, I think she was a makeup woman or something, and then the pilot, and they were flying down towards the tour buses and got too close and apparently clipped the wing, and then it just crashed, and all three people died that were on board. But anyway, so that the thing though is that Jackson guitar. Who would have known that, he had that first Jackson guitar made, and since then Jackson's become one of the most successful guitars that there is. Jackson guitars are everywhere. It became one of the most important guitar brands ever. And I have a few of them here. And it's just, again, it's amazing that this young guy, the kind of lasting impact he had, even in ways like that we don't think about, or that a lot of people may not even know. Kevin DuBrow said Rhoads never really reached his full potential as a guitar player. It is wondrous to think what kind of player Rhoads would be today if he hadn't gotten killed in a plane crash. It's possible he could have had a tremendous solo career and could have given Eddie Van Halen a run for his money. He could have become another Andre Segovia because he was very fond of classical playing and dreamt of playing classical guitar someday. I also like wondering what it would be like if Jimi Hendrix was still alive. Could you imagine those two jamming together on stage? And yeah, talk about another guy who died young, Jimi Hendrix only put a handful of albums out too. And we've kind of been living on those ever since, and all the live recordings that everybody's been able to drum up. But, another really, really young guy that had this massive impact and still resonates today. Let's see here. I consider myself lucky because I have so many pictures, posters, and articles of Rhoads, and also the work that he has done with Ozzy Osbourne. It's very hard to realize that Rhoads can never play his guitar again, but listening to songs like Mr. Crowley and Suicide Solution, it seems as if Rhoads is still alive and kicking. All Rhoads fans should be happy that we can remember him as a talented and honest guitar player. Some of us have never had the honor of seeing him perform live, but it doesn't really matter. What does matter is that he did exist, and he was a very special musician. It's up to us to keep his music and his memory alive. Long live Randy Rhoads, fly off Thunderbird. And that last line is kind of an interesting thing because of its tie-in back to Quiet Riot. So what I pulled out here is, on your screen, you'll see this is my copy of Quiet Riot Metal Health. And I mentioned this in another video, but of course you'll see right here, it says, this album is dedicated to the memory of Randy Rhoads. But there's also one other very subtle thing on this record that goes to the reference here in her article. And it's right here. It's the last song on side B. And the song is called Thunderbird. You can see it's written by Kevin Dubrow, and it says 4RR. And that song, Thunderbird, is a song that Kevin Dubrow wrote for his really close friend, Randy Rhoads. Because, of course, the two of them really started this band, Quiet Riot. And the last line that she put in this article, Fly Off Thunderbird, that is probably a reference to the last line in the song when Kevin Dubrow sings Fly On Thunderbird, again referencing his friend Randy Rhoads. So anyway, I thought you'd find that interesting. Again, I just kind of stumbled across that article, and it's pretty neat to go back and look at this time. Here we are, 40 some odd years after he died, and still we talk about him, and he still resonates, and he still had an impact that still reverberates. And arguably, the reason Ozzy Osbourne has the staying power that he had, that he got that first launch into his solo career, that kind of ultimately led him to becoming truly a household name, is partly the result of Randy Rhoads. Hey, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Please follow the channel if you're not following it already. Like the video, and I'd love to get your thoughts on Randy Rhoads. What kind of an impact did he have on you? What do you remember about that? How old were you when he died? Do you remember when that happened? And I know we have a lot of people that follow this channel who are guitar players and just musicians in general. What, if any, kind of impact did Randy Rhoads ultimately have on you? All right, with that, have yourself a fantastic day.